Hello, my name is Ryan. How are you today? Today I'm here to talk to you about fishing. And not only fishing, but safety of fishing in the river. Rivers are much different than lakes. Not only do they have undercurrents and whirlpools, they also can get very cold at different times of the year. Today is January 16th, and the river is about 36 degrees. Cold enough to cause hypothermia. When you experience hypothermia, your body shuts down and you are no longer able to move your muscles or get out of the water, in which you die. Sad story, yes. But there are ways to avoid that. Today, I would like to tell you about how to get out of a frozen lake, frozen river, any kind of frozen water, so you can avoid hypothermia. If you look to my right, you'll see there's snow on the ground and ducks and snow around, and the water is not frozen. Well, even though the water's not frozen, it's still very cold. As you can see from my legs from being in the water, they're slightly reddened, and that was only 30 seconds of exposure to the cold water. Now when people are fishing, say ice fishing, river fishing in the winter, you gotta be very careful not to go in the water, but it happens. People go in the water. It's inevitable. Somebody will go in the water. So, as my partner here falls down the hill, it's a very good example of how someone can go in the water while they're fishing. It's wet out, the snow is somewhat melted, so the ground's very soft, the footing is very unstable, and anything can happen. As you can see, I'm slowly moving into the water. It is very cold, but this keeps your mind off of being nervous about giving speeches. So, it was a good speech. But for fishing in the winter, if you do go in the water, you've only got about, depending on how cold the water is, you only got about 45 seconds to a minute of time to get out. Now in the river, if you're close to the bank, what you should do is to stay low and crawl your way out until you're on the bank. At that point is which you would want to discard your wet clothing and get dry and put on dry clothing. Now, if you were in a, let's say an ice shanty doing ice fishing on a lake, and you fell through the ice, now you're in a more serious situation, because when you fall through the ice, not only do you get disoriented from falling to the ice, you get very cold and immobilized. So first thing you gotta do is find your hole that you fell through, and find that once you get to that hole, you can have oxygen. But the hardest part is getting out of that hole. If you try to grab on the ice to climb out, you're most likely going to slide. The ice could break away from you as you're trying to get out. All kinds of things, so many different variables that they're just unspoken. So the best way to get out of frozen ice, if you don't have anybody around, is to spread your body weight out around where you're at. Spread your legs, your arms, try to float up to the top and keep it spread, and just crawl out of the lake with your body weight spread all over and not try to break through. If this doesn't work, you may want to just get rid of your shoes, your pants, your shirt, because more than likely you're not going to be dressed like I am, in tank top and shorts, but you're going to be dressed in full winter gear, heavy boots, heavy pants, heavy jackets. So you want to discard your clothing and then try it again. And if that doesn't work, you're pretty much screwed, because by this time it's way too long in the water and hypothermia is going to set in and you're going to drown. Now today we're in a river, which is not quite as dangerous as a lake, but it has its own dangers other than a lake. We've got currents out here to my right, as you can see. These currents can pull you down river. They can take you under the water. They can do all kinds of things. Right now I'm standing in a slack pool of water. Like I said, the temperature is about 36 degrees. You can see my legs are turning very, very red and cold from being in the water. Pretty much that means that the water is cold enough it's killing the skin, it's killing the nerve endings, and hypothermia and frostbite is setting into the legs. For right now, I would like to show you that it is possible to go into the water, full up to your head, and make it back out in the middle of January when it's very cold. This water, as of 3 days ago, was frozen solid ice. Luckily, we had a slight warm spell the last couple days, like 37, and it melted the ice. So it's still very cold, and I'll show you how to get out of the water. Woo! That's cold. That's very cold. And it's hard to breathe. Thing is, when you go into cold water, what happens is your body naturally will want to inhale more air. But what you got to do is you got to hold that back and not inhale the water because you'll drown. And that's how you stay out of cold water.